Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio here at Itron Utility Week. I'm now joined by Juan Garcia, who's the president and co-founder of Disco Learning Media. And Juan, first off, thank you for taking the time to be here. And we were chatting a little bit off air about, what your 3-year-old startup, but still a startup, is trying to do. But you know that better than I do. So just give us some context and then we can dive into the guts of it and the value it has to the energy sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me here. So Disco Learning Media, or Disco for short, we are a very young company. We are going into our third year. And we are a learning experience and digital publisher with an emphasis and focus on energy, education, and the environment. And we partnered with Itron from the very beginning. So we're going into our third year of partnership with Itron. And together we've created a public-private partnership. We're working with Dr. Michael Weber from the University of Texas at Austin. He's the Deputy Director of the Energy Institute there to create a digital curriculum called Resourcefulness. And so what we do is we really like to take these high-level concepts like energy, which can be a very complex topic, and we like to boil it down and make it more accessible for students and teachers and general audiences.
So now the rather glib and obvious question is why? Can you put it into context? Because at the opening keynote, there's a stat that was mentioned that about 50% of the current workforce is going to retire. Is this where this issue is coming from, or is it something deeper than that?
Sure, that's a great question. So you're right. We're looking at in 10 years' time, almost 50% of the workforce, in STEM-related or engineering-related fields retiring. We're also looking at, we have 26 million STEM jobs here in the U.S. So if you do the math very quick, you realize that's a major deficit. And already we're seeing the numbers where students graduating from high school, students that are leaving universities, just don't have the proper skill set to go directly into a STEM-related field. And so this is really where our partnership with Itron has been very critical and very key. Itron was great at recognizing very early on that within their own ranks, within their own industry, that there was going to be a deficit, a shortfall. They were seeing that already in their candidate pipeline. They were seeing that in the employees that they were bringing on board. And so the idea was that if we could create a resource that really brought to light the challenges, but also the solutions around the energy-water nexus, and we could inject that into the education system, that would really help inspire and engage this next generation of innovators and learners.
So, and these are my words, not yours. So what I'm hearing here, there are two problems. One is actually inspiring people to want to work in this industry, and let's not say STEM, that's just the basis, right?
Sure.
But after that, you make a decision where you go, hey, I want to go and work in the energy sector. So that seems to be one issue, and then the other one is the job readiness. So if we can drill down into both of those.
Yeah.
So let's keep to the first one. Why is it, do you think, that young kids, university, college, whatever we call it, are not tuned into the potential of this sector?
Yeah, it's something that I witnessed, firsthand during the recent storms, that were a part of Hurricane Harvey, in the Texas area, and even in our own neighborhood, which, coming from the Austin area, we're hundreds of miles away from Houston, but our power, the electricity was still being impacted. And it was interesting in the days and weeks that have followed since to have conversations with many adults about why the power was coming in and out, where they were very confused by, well, why would something that's in Houston be impacting something all the way in Austin, and sort of helping them understand, well, if you look at how a grid system is built, if you look at how that electricity has to get to your home, we're sort of, these days, in our Western cultures especially, we just take it for granted. Energy is all around us. It's everywhere. And we just assume that whenever we plug in our smartphone or plug in our laptop, that once we put that into the wall outlet, it's going to charge up and we're ready to go. And I don't think that we really understand the complexity and severity of what would happen if we don't have that until we're in these major crises. like we've been seeing now globally, in the last few weeks here this year. So I think it's how do we present that already to these audiences and help students and again, their parents, their families, general public, how do we get them to really understand the complexity of energy already, but then help them understand that they can be a part of that. And really it starts with that education piece. And so working again with Itron on this partnership to be able to deliver this to schools all around the country and all around the world has been very exciting for us to work with them, in that partnership, because I think it's really key. So we have recently established a partnership with the Energy Institute High School here in Houston, and in this partnership, all 700 plus students have access to the resourcefulness curriculum, which is huge.
So what is that curriculum trying to do that the actual curriculum is not doing?
Yes, so a lot of our curriculum is what we call core curriculum these days. Very math, science,
Physics,
or very heavy in the basics. But now what we're seeing is we want to get away from that core curriculum, and we have many universities and educators from across the country, around the world, coming to us to say, well, what's outside of that general bubble where we can do something that's a little bit more innovative and a little more exciting. So if you take the resourcefulness curriculum, for instance, what we've done is, this isn't just an A to Z about the energy-water nexus that was written by Dr. Weber, but it's also filled with lots of interactive tools and calculators and videos that are also meant to, not just establish many of these complex topics that are featured, something like carrying capacity. This isn't exactly, Thanksgiving, dinner conversation to have with the family. But we, in some ways, want to get it to that point. We want people to understand that these complex topics don't have to be complex. So resourcefulness was really designed to be this guide that makes things very tangible and very approachable.
So, what is it that it's trying to do? Is it one of those things where, an argument that I've made for some time, that the energy sector needs to up its game in terms of its sexiness and appeal to the generation. The Googles, the Facebooks, and the Amazons, the tech companies have done a great job in that, right? So you should leave a STEM job. Where would you ideally want to go?
Yes.
The first word that comes to your mind isn't I don't know, Duke Energy or Eon or any of those things.
Right.
Is that the problem?
Yes, so, as the second part of your question, yes. So resourcefulness was really created at its core as a part of college and career readiness pathways, right? It's the idea that if you can expose students at an early age to the opportunities that exist within the energy industry and within the utility sectors, that they have an opportunity to see themselves in that. We want to get away from just saying you have to go the traditional engineering route. That there are opportunities for marketing, communications, creativity, where students didn't really recognize before that exists. They can see themselves by going through and going, oh, I understand, I don't have to be an engineer to problem solve, but it's my critical thinking skills, my creativity, my grit that really help me tackle an issue. And that's really where resourcefulness is key, is getting that into the hands of students. We hear it over and over again, not that it's just a beautifully designed curriculum, but again, it's very approachable and very tangible in helping students understand some of these key issues that we're facing in the energy industry all over the world.
And is it working?
It is working. From what we've seen, it's working. It's still very fresh and very new. We have about 2,000 applications that have been downloaded so far through various app stores. And then now with the partnership with the Energy Institute High School, we have more than 700 students that have access to that. So we're continuing to roll it out. Really, the partnership with the Energy Institute High School is the foundation of many more big things to come, and many other schools that we want to partner with and work with in getting this into the hands of their students so we can continue to make progress.
Perfect. And so we've done that part of the earlier question. I'm rewinding back. The other thing you're trying to do is get people career ready or job ready, and just explain to me a little. I mean, look, this has been one of those issues that's been around for a long time. Even in my day, employers were complaining that, hey, you guys come out of university, you ain't ready, and we then got to train you for another 3 years before you become useful. But you're trying to somewhat fast track that, and just talk a little bit to that.
Sure, sure. Well, the resourcefulness curriculum is definitely a key component in this process of college and career readiness. And again, it goes back to the public-private partnership that we've established between Itron, UT Austin, the Energy Institute High School, and DISCO.
And that's a whole new thing, the PPP around
exactly.
this sort of stuff, because
yes.
you were saying off air we left it to
yes.
federal funds.
Yeah, well, there was exactly, here in the United States, there was a period of time where federal funding was pushing forward a lot of the curriculum that was being infused into schools. And now we're sort of, moving back to an approach that was taken in the, in the 70s and 80s, where public-private partnerships were some of the key drivers of a lot of the content. You have to sort of go back and think about the space program and the NASA days, and we're going to get men on the moon, and so there was a huge injection of getting math and science curriculum into the schools. And then as that slowly petered out, a lot of industry step forward and say, well, we're going to fill that gap, that place where...
Yeah, but not the energy industry,
Not
right?
the energy industry, interesting enough. And this is why, again, we say, Itron was really ahead of the curve, at recognizing the importance while they were looking at their numbers, looking at their workforce and saying, okay, we need to do this. And so that approach has been great at establishing really solid content and a really solid delivery mechanism. And now that we have it in the hands of these students, we continue to test and perfect, as we can do with digital curriculum, which is actually nice. A standard curriculum, if we're looking at just print pages,
yeah.
The moment that it's printed, right, the joke is always that it's already out of print. It's already out of date. But the nice thing with digital is that we do have that ability to go back, to make those changes, and we can make it very current. So again, going back to the storms that impacted the Texas coastal area this year, we can make an entire new chapter just about that to help infuse into the curriculum, which I think is very brilliant compared to what we could do before. And I see this happening at home with my own children. I have young children, and how they're able to engage with learning when it comes to digital, and how much faster that knowledge retention can really be. And that's really at the heart of it too, is knowledge retention. We know this happens. You talked about university. You go out into the world and you sort of learn on the job. And a lot of that goes back to the knowledge retention that didn't happen when we were at the university level. The same thing really happens in professional environments too. Yeah. I think the current figure is that once you've done on-the-job training, 90% of that is, and so that retention really can come in through better communication. Again, this is where DISCO fits in as this learning experience company. We work hand in hand with our partners and our clients to create the best possible mechanism. Maybe that's a mobile application, maybe that's a digital course, it's an online course, but we work together to create that. Everything that we do, though, is really design-centered. We like to create these pieces that you would feel almost like if you were reading a digital magazine. We have a lot of video production that we put into our work as well. So it's very different and very unique from what you would see a standard curriculum being. And I think that that's where students and teachers, and again, just the general public, became very engaged by this curriculum that we work on, that we do.
And just very quickly, in terms of just the last few minutes that we've got here, you still haven't quite answered the question about getting people ready for the jobs and fast tracking that. How do you do that?
That really, and that's a piece where, again, we fit into as creating the curriculum, but that really is this bigger piece where a partner like Itron is really key. And these relationships that we can establish with these young learners and these future leaders in creating programs where you're creating almost a candidate pipeline from a very early stage, and allowing them to be exposed to the opportunities, the people that are working at certain companies, and just giving them this pathway. Whereas I think before, I can certainly speak to my own high school experience. You didn't always know that there were pathways, and I think I'm really one of those that would have considered a STEM career had I known that there were more opportunities in STEM than I was traditionally presented with. So it's a lot of myth busting, a lot of debunking. Part of that happens with the resourcefulness curriculum, but a lot of that really happens again in these big relationships that we establish as an entire umbrella program. And really with Itron and their corporate social responsibility project and their team, this really is a big umbrella program where they want this feedback loop, to feed back into their pipeline that creates, those relationships that help students understand there are opportunities for you out there, and we're a place that you can turn to.
And it creates real value back to the business.
That's right.
Very quick question, just as quickly as you can, if you may. Why do you think the energy sector has been so slow in stepping into this? The tech sector has done a fantastic job in terms of nurturing and getting into universities and using that feeder loop. What is it in your mind that has stopped the energy sector from being as aggressive as it should be, maybe?
That's an excellent question. I think that, just personally, in my own mind, I think that the energy industry actually isn't alone. I think that many industries globally are suffering, and it really boils back down into this idea of understanding that communication and media literacy are actually very key components of every industry. It could be energy, it could be healthcare. Everyone can benefit from media literacy, and I think that just the way we saw more than a decade ago in the film and television industries, how social media and online digital presence was transforming those particular industries, we're starting to see that happen now because people understand that value and power of communicating.
On that note, we'll leave it. Juan, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again for watching this Angelati interview at Itron Utility Week. Some of the projects that Juan talked about, we will be doing some in-depth interviews, and I think we'll have some students on as well. So watch this stream and you can join all the dots. But Juan, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.